Hello and welcome. Bear with me for just one moment here. We're going to see how many more people will come in. I apologize. Um, so I'm going to give, first of all, a brief overview on the laws and on some of the access challenges that we face. And then as you're thinking of questions, go ahead and put them into chat. If you are viewing and do not have a Twitch account, by all means, please message me on Facebook. I will still answer those questions as well. That will be why you will see me looking down at my phone fairly regularly, is monitoring both the chat and my Facebook messages, rather than forcing everybody to blink back and forth between different windows. So we're going to start our journey tonight with the National Park Service. And understand, up until 2018, the National Park Service did not have a standardized set of rules or policies concerning service dogs. It was essentially up to each individual park to come up with their own policy, basically. The National Park Service went in and said, no, we need to fix this, and brought a revised policy in. And that revised policy, I actually have, as soon as it loads, the memorandum here, which is dated October 18th, 2018, and it addresses exactly what a service dog is and is not. It gives a couple of examples of work and or tasks that the dogs can do. It gives exactly what they are legally allowed to ask, which is fully in line with the ADA now. And understand that this, up until 2018, was not uniform. There was no guidance saying that there couldn't be questions about exactly how disabled a person was, or asking for certification or documentation. There were some parks that were asking for it. And the National Park Service stepped in and said, no, we need to fix this. So what is a service dog? A service dog is a dog that has been individually trained to perform work or tasks for a person with disabilities. What that can look like, and the most common reference, is guide dogs for the blind or the seeing eye. Now, those are specific programs, and they all fall under the blanket term of a guide dog. You also have hearing alert dogs. You have a mobility assistance dog in this picture. You have seizure alert and response. You even have dogs who are trained to sense things such as an increased heart rate or increased cortisol levels in a person's blood through scent, and to tell that person, hey, you're starting to spiral out of control, and help that person bring themselves back to center, bring themselves to the point of being able not to have an anxiety attack or have a PTSD flare-up. Are the dogs always 100% effective? Not necessarily. I will say that as a service dog handler myself, and one who has a dog who can do alerts and response work for me, for my migraines specifically, and my pain levels for my fibromyalgia, I will say absolutely these dogs are essential to somebody like me who has constant flares or can get exposed to certain triggers that set my migraines off. So the Park Service, in addressing this, made sure to include, which is also in the ADA, the fact that the work or task a dog has been trained to provide must be directly related to the person's disability. That means that essentially what the dog does must directly help the disabled person. One of the best examples I ever heard of this fact was, if a robot can do it for you, then there is most likely a chance that a service dog would be able to help you with it as well. If a robot or a stranger off the street couldn't provide a similar level of assistance, like let's say you need pressure put on you, if that pressure could be put there by an inanimate object and help, then absolutely a service dog will help as well. However, the caveat to this particular comparison is, yes, you remove the element of human feeling, but at the same time, when you're dealing with mental health, you are dealing with humans' feelings, which is why it's very, very crucial for everybody to understand that there are also what's called emotional support animals. Now, most everywhere in the U.S., emotional support animals are only covered for housing and in specific circumstances work. However, there are certain counties and a couple of states that have broadened that to be, okay, you also must allow them in short-term rentals or hotels, and a couple of counties have said absolutely ESAs need public access as well. So that's not a 100% blanket policy anymore like it was a couple of years ago, but it is still something very crucial to consider. In general, emotional support animals do not have public access at all. They are only classified such for housing. They are basically a person's pet who, while providing them comfort and help and stability, has not been trained to specifically aid a person with a disability. Now, another point that was brought up, and thank you to Mirks for bringing that to my attention, was diagnosed with a disability. And we will get into that a little further over here as to what all constitutes a disability by the ADA standard. The national parks, coming back to where we were, has a very easy to follow website. They answer the question as far as emotional support and comfort, and therapy dogs, which also are people's pets who have been certified by a third party in some instances to be able to go into like hospitals, libraries, schools, and be there for other people's comfort. Those dogs are not necessarily there to do work for a disabled person unless their handler for the therapy work is a person with a disability and they are task trained as well. There are very few service dogs who are cross-trained to do therapy work as of today, to the best of my knowledge. Service dogs are allowed to go everywhere that the disabled handler is able to go. However, if you go to a national park, please by all means check with the rangers. Let them know that you are disabled. If you have a physical limitation, let somebody at the park ranger stations know so that they can put a note. That way, if something happens and they get called out and it happens to be you, that knowledge is already there. They also can tell you where will be safe and where will not be safe for your service dog to go. Moving on. And I apologize, my computer is moving slightly slow. Okay, looking at the comments here, absolutely. And that is another question that we have to deal with on a different day. Because the emotional support animals versus service animals issue is becoming so widespread. That is actually why I am trying to help everybody understand. And I apologize. It seems that the ECFR wants to fight with me today. Yep. Okay. 28, 135, 80. Okay. So I have to do this no, the system is completely down for the official regs, which means that most of these might not pop open correctly. However, That's not a problem. I have alternate sources for that. Okay. This is... Okay, this is talking about what a commercial facility is, especially located in private residences. A lot of small business owners do not know and understand that if they run a business in their residence, the part of that business, if they allow clients into their home, the part of the home that that business is conducted in is absolutely considered public access for the business. And therefore, yes, you do have to let a service dog into your home if you run your small business out of your home. This also applies to Airbnbs, VRBO, any bed and breakfasts, because of the fact that that business is being run in a private residence. The portion of it that is used for the commercial facility operation or used for money making absolutely has to be ADA compliant to the best of its abilities. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean somebody has to remodel their home. This just means that if a person with a service dog comes to stay and you're running an Airbnb out of your home, that guest absolutely has to be allowed. Now, there is an exception there as well. If you are renting out your private home as a travel rental, if you are living in that home full time and you are absolutely extremely allergic to dogs, go to your healthcare provider, discuss your med options while you're there, but you might be able to qualify for an exemption from the ADA when it comes to your private home because of the fact that that dog would be there for more than a short period of time. Another part that we need to address, and I'm trying to remember if it's on this one or the next one. Give me just a moment, please. Nope, it should be on this one. Okay, so the ADA goes off of several standards, one of them being commercial facilities. Basically, we're talking about anywhere that travel, trade, traffic, commerce, transportation, or communication is happening. In the U.S., this applies. That includes any facilities that are not expressly exempted under the Fair Housing Act, any aircraft that are not exempted, anything that is not explicitly exempt has to follow this law. Facility means any or all portions of buildings, structures, sites, complexes, equipment, stock, or other conveyances, roads, walks, passageways, real or personal property, including the site where the building, property, structure, or equipment is located. So they have further defined commercial facility by defining facility specifically as anywhere that business is happening. Individual with a disability means a person who has a disability. The term individual with a disability does not include an individual who is currently engaging in the illegal use of drugs when the private entity acts on the basis of such use. So basically what that is saying is the term individual with a disability applies all the way around, except for if that disability is directly because of active drug use. That actually falls into a different part called unreasonable. Place of public accommodation. Again, we have inns, hotels, motels, or a facility that provides guest rooms for sleeping for stays that are primarily short-term in nature. Now, obviously, if anybody ever is questioning that, by all means seek legal counsel as well, because while I am an advocate, I am not a lawyer. There is a difference. I can absolutely sit here and tell you what the laws are, but at the end of the day, I cannot say that I can tell you no ifs, ands, or buts. X, Y, and Z is going to be dismissed because of ABC law. That I cannot do. And I am absolutely all for educating people. I am all for everybody getting to know and understand this, because the more people who understand, the more we will see a decline in people taking pets out in public, the more we will see it be safer for people with disabilities and the general public. Because the more people who know their rights all the way around, the more those people can stand up for their rights. Also, a comment was just put up. Not our jobs as handlers, though. That is for law enforcement. Absolutely. I agree. If you are worried that somebody is faking, and if your state has laws against faking a disability or misrepresenting your dog as a service dog, feel free to reach out to your local law enforcement. They will be who can handle that. Unfortunately, it is not any private person's ability to strictly enforce this as a private person. Management of a business, however, can tell somebody who has a pet in their facility when they are not pet friendly that they must remove their pet. Same with a service dog who is showing signs of not being housebroken, and I'm not talking the one-off accident in Walmart. I'm talking this dog and handler consistently has had accidents multiple times in the facility. Then you need to document it. And if you are the manager of the facility or somebody in the facility who can handle that type of thing, then you take that to law enforcement if you need to. And if there's laws against faking in that state, you take it to your higher-ups and say, hey, we need to address this person bringing their animal in. It is a problem. Same with if a dog is excessively barking, excessively growling, lunging towards people, especially lunging towards other service dogs or animals. Most service dogs who are not in training are not even going to give but a glance towards that other dog. Very rarely you will see maybe a mild reaction or a startled bark, because again, dogs are living, breathing animals, and a single bark does not necessarily mean that dog is not trained. It just means that that dog had an off moment. You can't base off of just one action unless that action is directly threatening other people. Bear with me for just a second. Undue burden is another major thing to consider. It is an undue burden for me to say I have 4 service animals and I'm traveling with all 4 of them. Realistically speaking, most handlers are going to have 1 to 2 dogs. You may see an instance where there are 3, and this is a very rare instance. Usually it will be a situation such as one dog is retiring out, the other dog can't do the same work that that dog can do, so part of that load is on a third dog who is just transitioning in. I have seen it happen a couple times, but again, this is very rare. Basically, don't judge it until you've actually seen reason to believe that people are not being legitimate. And then bring it up to management's attention. Bring it up to law enforcement. Don't go confront these people yourselves, guys. Do not put yourself in danger, because that absolutely is a high probability. Another thing to make very clear: no individual shall be discriminated against on the basis of disability in the full and equal enjoyment of goods, services, facilities, privileges, advantages, or accommodations of any place of public accommodation by any private entity who owns, leases, or leases to, or operates a place of public accommodation. There are no loopholes there, ladies and gentlemen. It's black and white that service dogs must be allowed unless that particular individual dog is causing a problem. That doesn't mean you can say, oh, this dog's a pit bull, this dog's going to cause a problem. No. Part of the ADA, which I'm going to jump over here for a minute, and I think it is this one I want. Bear with me. Okay. So, talking about the exclusions again, a business or state local government does not need to allow a service animal if the dog's presence would fundamentally alter the nature of goods, services, programs, or activities provided to the public. What that means is we can't take our service dogs into an ICU or a surgical suite. If that ICU is a burn unit and somebody has to take precautions to even go in there, then it is a very good possibility that the service dogs will not be allowed. It boils down to that would fundamentally alter the environment because you're looking at a sterile environment. Other than that, zoos are about the only other place that I see a regular exception. Zoos can keep a service animal out of certain parts if it's going to cause problems for the animals that live there or it's an open aviary. That boils down to a safety issue and zoonotic diseases, because our dogs can pass to those animals and those animals can pass to our dogs. Removing a service dog, again, unless the dog is out of control and the person cannot get control of the dog, you can't remove them, or if the dog is not housebroken. State and local governments cannot ban a service dog based on their breed or require certification or registration of service dogs. Now, there are some states who do have a voluntary registry. Those states cannot require other dogs to have that registry. They cannot require their citizens to have that registry. It is something that is completely optional. Bear with me for just one moment. I will be literally right back. Okay, I apologize. I had to reposition and I had to cough at the same time. Alright. Just waiting for my stream to come back all the way over. There it goes. Alright. Something else that was on this link that I want to address really quickly, and I apologize, I have you guys way too far up. Is miniature horses. Miniature horses are still covered by the ADA. However, they don't have the same protections as service dogs in the fact that the DOJ will not currently take cases concerning miniature service horses. You should still allow a miniature service horse if possible, because they are every bit as important as a service dog. They just are a different animal for people who cannot use a traditional service dog. Allergies, they don't have enough mobility for a service dog to be able to assist, but need that heavier mobility that a miniature horse can provide. Bear with me. I think it is. Okay, no, it is not on this one. Alright, we're going to come all the way over to this end tab now. And this is the ADA's FAQ. This is literally the easiest way to get yes and no answers in a short time frame. Down at the bottom of this, there is also some more links to the DOJ, the information line. Now, bear in mind, the information line is staffed by volunteers, so you may not always get an answer that sounds completely right. If that's the case, I highly encourage you to seek out one of your regional ADA centers. Like for me in Wyoming, mine is the ADA of the Rockies. We also have what's called adata.org, which is the national network for the ADA. This is basically part of the volunteers who help with making sure that the information line has as close to accurate information as possible. This covers in better detail Title II and Title III of the ADA, which Title II is actually pertaining specifically to state and county governments. Title III applies specifically to public access that is not state or federal government. Now, the one part that I do not have pulled up tonight is the 504 Rehabilitation Act, and the reason being, the Rehabilitation Act has been receiving a lot of guidances and alignment to the ADA. However, digging through the Rehabilitation Act, you're not going through it like you are any of the codes here that you see. The Rehab Act is very disjointed. It's organized by organization. I apologize. My brain said, let's try to forget the words. I'm going to go back and look through comments here again real quick. Okay, another point that is brought up in the comments is it's also a massive issue for airplanes. Absolutely. The airlines have had a major problem with emotional support animals, to the point that the Department of Transportation went in and rewrote the Air Carrier Access Act, or ACAA, and they rewrote this act to explicitly exclude emotional support animals because it was so out of control. Now there are two forms that the airlines are allowed to require. Both of them are on the DOT website. That link will be included in the document on the YouTube recording from this stream. And the other point brought up concerning airlines specifically is service horses. Yes, it absolutely is harder to fit a giant breed service dog or a service mini into the seating area that you get. In these instances, a disabled handler, to have more room for their animal, does have to buy a second ticket. That way there is more floor space for their service dog or their service mini to stand or lay in. It's not necessarily fair, but at the same time, it is, because the airlines are going to be losing out on that seat in accommodations. And that's why the DOT said, the handler has to take and pay for this, because it's costing us money otherwise. But going back, I apologize, the ADATA is absolutely a wonderful resource as well. They have multiple links where you can go through the portals. You can actually get training specifically from DOJ certified people to address anything as far as the ADA and get yourself and others up to speed with it. This is 2024, ladies and gentlemen, and unfortunately, us disabled handlers do see a lot more discrimination than we should be. At this time, does anybody have any questions? Double checking here. Okay, another point brought up in the comments. Us females especially, absolutely. As much as I hate to say it, we are targeted more than males with disabilities, especially by people with a bullying complex. All right, here's an excellent question. What do you do if a law enforcement officer tells you that you can't have your service dog somewhere? Well, for starters, it's going to depend on what your state law says. Because if your particular state law requires you use an orange collar and leash with your service dog for it to be considered a service dog, if you're using a black leash and an orange collar, you do not meet that definition. Unfortunately, the state laws are the only thing that local law enforcement can go by. Federal laws can only be enforced by federal agencies. That means that the ADA cannot be enforced by a local law enforcement agent unless your state laws also line up with it, or you have an officer who is absolutely willing to stand up for you. However, where we're talking about a law enforcement officer saying that we cannot have our service dogs there, number one, you need to get this officer's badge number and name. If you can get his business card, that would be even better. Number two, you need to reach out to his sergeant. Ask for a commander. Do not be afraid to calmly and politely request somebody higher in authority. If you cannot get resolution at that point, to avoid being arrested, you will need to leave. However, that is the point that you reach out to your state advocacy organizations, you reach out to the DOJ and file a federal complaint if that's the direction you want to go. Me personally, I try to educate businesses and law enforcement before I start reaching out to higher ups within those organizations. If I don't get resolution there, then I go to the state and I say, hey, this is what's going on. And I will have at that point gathered emails from the law enforcement side showing whether or not they are attempting to handle the matter. I will have requested a police report from the date of the incident with that officer's name and badge number and the time and location. I will have this documentation to take to the state and they will handle the matter for me. And absolutely the comment, all cops have cameras now. You have a right to that footage. You do. Under the Freedom of Information Act, you can go in and request that footage from that specific incident. Bear with me for just 1 second. Okay.
So you know why you're going slow.
I know. Have a safe drive. Let me know you made it there.
Oh, it'll be a little bit.
Okay. I apologize. My significant other is letting me know that he is leaving, which absolutely I prefer to know. Another comment here. Hello, Binky. Welcome. Another comment here was to add to it, even county levels have their own ordinances too. And this is absolutely correct. If your state offers a service dog license, the county over here may say, oh, absolutely. We will take your task list and see it as your dog is a service dog and hand you the tag. Meanwhile, this county over here will tell you if you don't have certification from a program, we're not going to recognize that your dog is a service dog. Unfortunately, counties within most states do have that right to set that and say that, unless it is already addressed in the state law. Arizona is a wonderful example of this. Let me pull this up for you. All right. Let me find it. Okay, so discrimination, obviously requiring provision of identification for the service animal is part of that discrimination. However, I am not seeing. Good grief, did they actually finally change it? So there used to be a provision in this statute that included Arizona's service dog licensing requirements. And that is, the state of Arizona requires that your dog either be in training or already trained as a service dog to go into your local county and get that tag. The state of Arizona got sued in 2013 by a handler. I'm sorry, I had to stop and think. For not recognizing their task list as verification of being a service dog. And because of the way Arizona has their laws worded, that county actually had to issue that license to that service dog and provide the handler compensation for his legal fees for having to fight for his right to have that state issued tag, because that state issued tag by Arizona was offered for free. All right, reading through comments here still. Yes, Texas is absolutely another state where county to county it varies. Ohio is another one that absolutely is the same way. Oh yes, thank you. The next point brought up in the comments was, at some point, let's address working canines and personal protection dogs. So under the ADA, and I'm gonna see if that particular one is actually up. Locations. I don't think I have it up. Bear with me. No, I do not. So in the Code of Federal Regulations, there is a document that was specifically on the commenting on the service dog laws. Let me look. If it's, no, it is not in this one. Okay, I apologize for not having that one up. I will have it in the links. However, a dog who has been trained to attack, a dog who has been trained to provide a direct show of violence towards people, under federal law is excluded as a service dog due to being considered a weapon. This has been referenced in case law many times at the federal level already, of a dog that has been trained to provide some form of visual, auditory, or literal threat to another person is considered an attack dog and considered a weapon. Most of the IPO and Schutzhund specific trainers on their websites have links to these case laws showing where a dog who bites is considered deadly force and therefore considered a weapon. Under federal law, only nonviolent protection work is allowed. Now, what that means is a dog can stand facing away from their handler so that if their handler is, say, at an ATM or a checkout, that dog is watching their back for them. That dog also can have 1, 2, maybe even 3 controlled barks. Anything beyond that will possibly be seen as a threat to a person. It would be grounds for legally excluding a service animal from the premises because of the dog being considered out of control. Bear with me. I know there is a line in here. Okay, yes, let's talk about the charges as well while we're on this. Before we move to that point, though, let me finish addressing this. I apologize. I am running on almost no sleep. Anyhow, finishing addressing PPDs and canines, one of the commenters has a retired military canine. This dog was trained in drug detection. This dog has been trained to provide a very creditable threat level. This dog has been trained to guard its handler. So this person can legally take this dog into pet-friendly locations and can have the dog work in their home. This dog can't be taken to a hospital. It cannot be taken to a courthouse. It cannot be taken to a school. Anywhere that bans weapons, this dog cannot go. I know a lot of handlers love to do Schutzhund and IPO with their service dogs, especially for the scent work. Unfortunately, once you cross the line into bite work, you are running a real creditable chance of not being able to claim your dog as a service dog anymore. I have personally seen cases thrown out of mediation because of the dog being trained in IPO. Anyhow, going back to the charges, because along the lines of out of control and not housebroken, let's say that service dog damages stuff in your business, in your home, wherever, that business can absolutely request that the handler pay for those damages. If your service dog does damage to a location, you are financially responsible as a handler. And businesses need to understand this. They also need to understand at the same time that if they require extra fees or deposits of people who take pets somewhere, they cannot charge that same thing to a service dog. Yes, the argument of a dog is absolutely there. However, a service dog legally is medical equipment. That means that they are there specifically and only because of their disabled person. If that disabled person isn't there, that dog is not a service dog at that moment, despite being trained as a service dog. Basically, what this means is that the handler is the component of a team that has the rights. A service dog has to have the training to help the handler, but the handler is the entity that has the rights, not the service dog. That's why if you do have to kick a service dog out, you absolutely need to offer the person with a disability the opportunity to continue to get their goods and services without the animal's presence. And let's say you kick a dog out once or twice for having various issues. That third time that dog comes in and is working perfectly, leave them alone. Let them go about their business, because that is a handler who has worked to correct their problems. That is the type of person that we would rather see in businesses. Myself personally, my first service dog was attacked 7 times in public. I almost lost him the 6th time and the 7th time. I almost was not able to have my Lifeline continue working in public for me because these other dogs attacking him had caused him to become reactive. Another handler that I know actually had to fully retire her dog, and within 6 months had to put the dog down because of being attacked by another pet in a mall. And it made that dog so fearful and so reactive that he was snapping out at people just on regular walks. And the handler had to make the unfortunate decision of, I cannot reasonably manage this. I can't put this on somebody else. And she chose to do the humane thing and euthanize her dog. It absolutely destroyed her. And the comment in the questions was asking if the first dog that I'm talking about is Mushu. Yes, he was my first public access service dog, for those of you who do know me. Anyhow, we are starting to get slightly off task again here. One other major thing I want to address, certification. And we're going to go all the way down here to question 17. Because covered entities may not require documentation. No certifications, no licenses, nothing of that nature. You may ask the two legally allowed questions. Is this a service dog required due to a disability? And if the person answers yes, what work or tasks has this dog been trained to perform? These are the key components. If they cannot tell you what work or tasks their dog does, then there is a high chance that they are not supposed to be there. If they're pulling out cards and such, there is a chance they are not supposed to be there. There are some programs that do tell their handlers, just pull out the card with our information on it and let us handle it. That is not every program. That is not legally allowed. Also, there are individuals and organizations that sell service animal certification or registration documents online. These documents do not convey any right under the ADA, and the Department of Justice does not recognize them as proof that the dog is a service animal. If you go to court, and I have been there with my dog, if you go to court, what the court is going to be looking for is, how was this dog trained? How long was this dog trained? Was this dog actually taught to do things specifically for the person's disability? Absolutely. And that is something that people need to understand, is fake certifications are everywhere. I'm just going to pull one up for you. And understand, this particular one is very well known to be a fraud. They try to make themselves look legitimate by providing some correct information and some incorrect information. But right here, registration is free. This means nothing. This is literally just you self-attesting that your dog is a service dog and getting an ID from this organization at the tune of whatever cost it is now, or even getting fake letters. So if you see something from National Service Animal Registry or anything else online, it is from a scam. It is not legally recognized. Are hotel guests allowed to leave their service animals in hotel rooms? Absolutely not. The service dog has to remain with the handler to have the protection of being a service dog. A hotel may allow a disabled guest to leave their service dog crated in a room, but that is not the norm, and a hotel is not legally obligated to allow a handler to leave their dog in the hotel room. Alright, looking through. Double checking on my Facebook to see if there are any other questions. Alright, I am not seeing any. Are there any further questions for the chat? If not, I am going to go ahead and wrap this up early. I do not see any more. Thank you very much for coming in. I hope you all have a wonderful night. And please feel free to reach out to me on any of my social platforms if you have any questions. Thank you.